it all begins with culture, and Erik ten Hag is proving that very much so. Quickly, regarding yesterday's action, by the way, Arsenal were held by Newcastle 0-0. We'll talk about them in a second. Everton, we'll talk about them as well. Lost to Brighton, big time as well. And Fulham, Mitrovic just keeps Mitrovicing. Incredible, as they beat Leicester City, who are in trouble. But let's go back, Oggy, to Arsenal and Newcastle. I mean, listen, obviously we saw the fiery reaction from Mikel Arteta towards the end, claiming it was a penalty with that inadvertent handball. But, you cannot deny just how tough Newcastle were to break down. Sven Botman, one of the transfers of the season, I think. But what do you make of this game as Arsenal were held 0-0 to Newcastle United?
Yeah, I was at the game last night. In the first 20 minutes, I thought Arsenal are going to blow them away. They were fantastic. But then Arteta started to lose the plot on the touchline. He got, he was facing off with the fourth official, and it transmitted to the players. And the players started to lose the plot on the pitch. They picked up 3 bookings in quick succession. And Newcastle realised that they'd suddenly got under Arsenal's skin, and they were able to frustrate them. And it seeped into the crowd. And it was, Arteta really needs to look at himself the way he was acting on the touchline. I just think that he needs to show more calmness, because it's only January, the first week in January. The pressure of the title race usually comes in April or May. He can't start feeling it now. He's got to start calming down a little bit and transmitting that calm to the players, because they're a good team, but I think they're an inexperienced team. And I think last night showed that they do lack people that have been down the track before, that have actually won a title. They've got some great young players, but they kind of run out of ideas. Newcastle made it fairly obvious what they were going to do. They were just sitting deep, breaking on the counter-attack. And Arsenal had the same approach time after time after time. Give it to Saka, give it to Martinelli, try and do it that way. And Newcastle, fantastic, considering the work that Eddie Howe's done. This time last year, they were second bottom. He's got them really organised. They're a really good team now. They do lack a bit of a cutting edge. But for me, Arsenal, I think last night, if I was an Arsenal fan, I wouldn't have been getting carried away just yet about winning the title. But I think even though they've got a decent lead at the top of the table, I'd be a little bit concerned that the jitters have already started. And it's too early for that. If the jitters have started now, then what they're going to be like in April, May, when the tension really starts to bite.
I hear you, but if I were Arsenal a fan, I'd be happy, because neither team has failed. These are the top two defensive teams in the league, right? I mean, are we really? And I know why, because they're top. But what are we expecting? Arsenal to win every game from now on? I mean, they play against a Newcastle team that conceded 11 goals, as you've said. Defensively, great. Everybody. Trippier, incredible. Yeah, he was wasting time, and he was an instigator in a lot of the things that Mark had said, that Arsenal didn't react to it very well. He's experienced. He's been under Diego Simeone at Atletico Madrid. He's learned things, right? And maybe they did get under the skin with fouls and wasting time. Fair play, and Arsenal maybe has to learn how to deal with that. But I think they attacked until the last moment. They showed that they're maybe not absolutely ready, but what's wrong with that? That's a point against a very good Newcastle side that conceded 11 goals this season. Arsenal are second, I think, with 14. So let's not forget, this is an Arsenal team that in the last 3 years finished, what, 8th, and 5th? And now we're almost, and it's not coming from you, Mark, but it's, when I'm reading, everybody and all the media, all the articles, it's like, oh my goodness, what happened to Arsenal? They played a very good game. Was it perfect? No. Did Newcastle find a way to take Martinelli out of the game and Saka to some degree? Absolutely. I think this game, if anything, showed how much they missed Gabriel Jesus, because in a game like this, he would have been the player with his mobility and ability to stretch defenses and maybe take players out of position. The players like Botman and Fabian Schär, who I actually thought it was even better than Botman yesterday. Absolutely. It showed that Edin Nketiah is not at that level just yet. But overall, it's a good point for an Arsenal team that would try to attack Newcastle. In the beginning, they got lost a little bit in the middle, and then in the end came very, very close. Attitude and culture is good. And you know what? You take a point against an opponent like this.
We'll
I think that's a really good.
Go ahead.
Sorry, just want to make the point. I think, like Janusz said, it wasn't perfect last night, and that is a really good point in the sense that I think because Arsenal had won 7 games at home prior to that, I think the fans were beginning to expect perfection. I think we're in that modern world now where everything has to be either fantastic or really bad. And Arsenal last night weren't fantastic. They weren't really bad. It was a gritty game. It was one of those games that you get in a title race where not everything goes your way. And I think maybe the crowd has to relearn that back in the day when they used to win titles under Arsene Wenger, there were games that would come along that were difficult and frustrating. It can't be perfect. And the season has gone so well for Arsenal that maybe it is a learning process on and off the pitch, in that some games are going to be tough and some games you have to be patient, because they have got a lot of talent. but it is going to get harder from now on. So you can't be panicking. Was probably too strong, but Arteta was beginning to, panic at times.
And, just quickly what the game showed, some of the deficiencies. I mentioned Gabriel Jesus, but I think in terms of fullbacks, and I've seen that. I've worried about Arsenal fullbacks for a while now because, Newcastle did a great job on Martinelli and Saka, but normally great teams have others that come in and put them under pressure because you saw what Arsenal were doing, doubling down with, Almiron and Joelinton coming in. At times it was Willock and Sean Longstaff who were helping them. But if you had fullbacks, if Arsenal had fullbacks that truly had the quality to attack in this sort of a game, then I think that would take pressure away. And look, Zinchenko in general has been good. He wasn't good yesterday. He didn't have a good game. If you look at Ben White, we all know that he's not a fullback, right? And even Tomiyasu, when he comes in, he's a center back. That's where he plays for Japan. He can play on the right and left. But when you think of attacking fullbacks who can help you, you don't think of White and you don't think of Tomiyasu and probably Zinchenko. And they also have Tierney, but I don't know if he's ready. He's too jittery for me as well. So I think they do need some help as they build and as they progress. But yesterday, I think fullbacks needed to do a lot more, and I think that would have caused Newcastle more problems.
Arteta has already said how January will be a place where they look. Joao Felix remains in conversation. We'll have to wait and see in terms of how they build in January. But many things can be true from both Oggy and Janusz. It's a very good Arsenal side who were fighting against a very resilient, up-and-coming Newcastle side. Very many things can be true. We'll have to wait and see how it develops. Let's quickly just discuss some other topics, including the aforementioned Everton, by the way, Mark Ogden. They really did not look good. It's been horrible. I believe Everton have not won since October 22nd in the league. Frank Lampard continues to struggle. It's not just about him, but the Toffees are not looking good. What do you make of them and putting themselves into a conversation of relegation fodder? What do you make of it?
Everton is the same old story every 6 months, isn't it? They lurch from optimism to crisis quicker than any club I can think of in the Premier League. And the next Premier League game is Southampton, which is going to be massive because Southampton look to me like they're cut adrift. And if they can get something against Everton, then Everton are really dragged into it. So, I think Lampard's future is definitely on the line. I think they've got Man United in the FA Cup on Friday away from home. You don't really see them getting anything from that. Now, you could argue that Frank Lampard, is he up to the job? I don't know. He's had 3 jobs in football now, all very much short-term jobs. Derby had a year there, got the Chelsea job too soon. Had a decent year at Chelsea, didn't sustain it. 18 months gone. Everton's a really, really big club, really big job, and it's going the same way as it always goes in January. They're losing touch with everybody above them. So I can see Lampard being out of a job very quickly if they lose well at United on Friday. That could be it, and it's a shame, but you have to think of Everton. Everton constantly do this chopping and changing. It's been Lampard, it's been Benitez, it's been Allardyce, it's been Silva. Ronald Koeman, Martinez, all these managers in the last few years. It's scary, and they keep repeating the same mistakes. The recruitment has been poor. I think it was better last summer. I think they made good signings with Marco and Connor Cody, but the quality isn't there. Now, where do you go with this one? I think Lampard needs a big result quickly. I don't see him getting it United. Then if he's still around for Southampton, he has to win that game. But some of the goals last night, the Pascal Gross goal was the back pass from Idris Gueye, absolutely amateurish. And that's what Everton have got at the moment, just mistakes all over the pitch.
Yeah, where do you start with that? You're quite right. 6 managers in 6 years since Farhad Moshiri has been the owner of that team. I don't know if another change makes a difference, but here we are. We were just talking about the difference a good leader makes. I don't know if Lampard is that leader. I really don't. I've said it even when they had that bounce. They didn't start well, right? And they had a little bit of a bounce, and we started to actually talk. I remember a little bit. Maybe Frank Lampard is getting his arms around this team, and that we see that we don't. But I've yet to identify how they play and what they do and what their style is. Are they a good defensive team, or do they have patterns to attack? And I don't see it. And just before the World Cup, remember, I think they were beaten easily by Bournemouth. I don't know if Bournemouth has won a game since then. And then you have 44 days or 45 days to maybe have the chance to train whoever is left, to come up with something to make your team more resilient, even if it's just mentally. And here we are. You'd like to think, the first game after the World Cup, they lost, right? Can't remember to whom. Then they get a result against Manchester City. You would like to think that you're going to build on that, right? Because you've lost at home before that. You come home and you get embarrassed like this after you had 44 days to find some sort of a way, even if it's just talking with the board, even if it's talking to the players that are there. 3 goals in 5 minutes. You've mentioned that goal from, I mean, absolutely embarrassing. And you know what? The young players yesterday got beaten all ends up, really. Michallik on one side and Patterson on the other made some mistake. But for the likes of Cody and Tarkowski, I mean, remember, what was Tarkowski trying to do? Stop the ball with his head? It was like Phil Jones situation from, I don't know how long ago, right? I mean, those are 2 very, very experienced players. And for the most part, they've been okay, actually. I didn't think they were absolutely terrible. But you need leaders in a game like this at home. So look, I don't think it's just on Frank Lampard. Obviously, there's issues at the board level, and this can't continue. But I don't know how Lampard survives this, because I just don't think. Yesterday, I look at that, and it was a total capitulation by his team.
There is an issue. Sorry, Janusz. There's an issue at Everton. There's an issue at Everton right now in the sense that obviously their majority shareholder, Alisha Usmanov, is in the same situation as Roman Abramovich at Chelsea. So Everton's situation is difficult with the fact that they haven't got the financial strength they had maybe a year, 2 years ago to make changes. They let Richarlison go in the summer. They replaced him with Neil Maupay. That was just a bad transfer. Dominic Calvert-Lewin's been injured, most of the season, so they've missed him. And maybe they haven't got the finances to get rid of Lampard and bring somebody else in. Maybe they're going to have to stick with Lampard because they can't make change in the transfer market this month, really. And if they're going to appoint a manager, who are they going to go for? Now, the people that are available, Sean Dyche is available, but I don't suppose the Everton fans would take to him because it's Sean Dyche. But
thank you very much for watching ESPN FC on YouTube. For more highlights, analysis and exclusive content, be sure to subscribe.